All right, welcome back, everybody. I'm Noah Sawyer, and this is the Junto. I actually don't know what episode this is. 27, 26, 27. Probably not 28. All right, yeah, so today I'm going to talk a little bit about. I titled this video Camaraderie, which is not the perfect title because I kind of am thinking about it, or camaraderie suggests to me, or implies definitionally, like sort of an in-group, out-group thing, like your comrades within a context. Although I think the word just comes from the French word comrade for friend, but then that's still like you're in the friend group. That's the context. And anyway, so I had a day where I talked to a lot of strangers, just a little bit. And so that's why I want to talk about this. So it was a nice day in New England for the first time pretty much since the winter. It felt like an actual spring day. There's still snow on the ground, but that's because there was just a ton of snow. So it's really hot. But anyway, so I took a walk on the east side of Providence, which is where Brown University and RISD are. And I walked, and I was going to go to the library, but it was too nice out to do that. So I went and... Sorry, I'm realizing there's a... Before I get into the topic of today's show, I really have to say I'm addicted to my phone. Like, it is insane how addictive it is. It is so, like, okay, so I don't even use it for very much, but unfortunately, since starting to do the YouTube stuff, I've been online a little bit more, and also the war is going on, and it makes me want to change, or it makes me want to check for changes or notifications. So I'll just reflexively go to my phone and check like Telegram for news, check Instagram for notifications, check YouTube for statistics or notifications. And like there's a whole circuit with that it's as if I can repeat it infinite times, because by the time I finish one, maybe there's like a news update at the other one, and then there's like a notification in the other place. And that's like, I just started posting reels on Instagram for the first time, so there's been a lot of attention on the page that had not been there. So obviously it's intriguing and makes me want to check it, but it is just it's just crazy how, like, with all of my being, I don't want to waste time on my phone. My fast for Lent has been, and unfortunately it is one that it's not like a hard cutoff. I can't just not use the internet for Lent based on this project. And so what I'm doing is only using devices with express intent, and that was going good for a while, and then the lines have just become blurred. I just need to redraw the lines really hard, where it's like I need to write down my intent before using the internet. I think that would help. Obviously, I really don't want to do that, or part of me really doesn't want to do that. And that's the tricky thing. It's just like there's a battle within me. One part of me has learned that the phone is really rewarding and enjoyable, and that the internet is a good way to use time. But the other part of me knows that that is not true, and in fact the opposite is true, in that it wastes my time and it damages my personhood, and it is not how I want to be living. So yeah, it's tough. So I just kind of wanted to start with that because it was interrupting my preparation for this show, where it's like typically I'll eat 2 hours before the show, I'll prepare for the next hour more or less, and then I will do like I'm a procrastinator, so there's always more to do in that last hour, and I will do vocal warm-ups for however long I'm able to do them, like 30 minutes to an hour, depending on how it feels. And that's like a very good part of the day. By the time I can't procrastinate the vocal warm-ups any longer. Like I only did them for 20 or 30 minutes tonight. And but then you start doing them, or I start doing them, and I feel relieved that I'm engaged in an actually real activity. Like I'm actually using part of my body that I hadn't used all day. Like I'd been speaking, but I hadn't been singing. And so it's sort of a grounding experience. And anyway, but leading up to that, I'll procrastinate and I'll check the news or whatever. But anyway, and I've realized something about it. Or I was writing earlier today while I was making food. I was waiting for rice to cook, and I started writing. When I set out on my walk, I brought my stuff to write because I thought I might go to a library, but it was just way too nice out. So I sat on the green and just like wrote a little bit, just wrote more like observational stuff. And anyway, so then when I was cooking, I engaged in writing, and I forget what I said, or well, I said something specific about it. Like I started writing this whole thing on one particular subject, which is more or less what the show's going to be about, and then I off to the side started writing something else, which is just I feel lucky, and underlined lucky. I feel lucky to be writing right now. And like I don't want to let that realization slip by me, because I think and I think this applies to a lot of us who are addicted to the internet. Like I'm so inclined to this type of wrong focus. It's like it's a type of unclarity, basically. Like, and through that, I wind up doing these things like checking the news, even though it's like, wouldn't it make more sense for me to check the news once at the end of the day? Because this news doesn't, if there's something that's going to affect me, I'll probably hear about it from another person. So it's like, really, I should just check it all at the end of the day and take notes on anything that is relevant. But instead it becomes this passive activity that I just vaguely stumble into without intention. Same thing with the notifications or the YouTube statistics, especially. It's like those, I mean, they almost literally don't change until the following day. It's mostly a day by day update. There's a few things that are live, but yeah. And same with all of that stuff. Really, I could concentrate that all to be at one point in the day, and that is what I ought to do. But it's just this state that I slip into of unclarity or wrong focus. Like I get away from myself. I get into these things that just don't really matter. And when I say I get away from myself, I think there's one way I think about returning to myself. It's not like I cut off the world or even cut off my body from my mind. It's like because I'm necessarily of the world. I'm a human in the world, and I'm also necessarily flesh. I'm a human person. So there's like those factors will never be totally liberated from me. And as such, when I say the world and my life, like what I mean is, it's not like I retreat into this selfish state where I'm not attending to any of the things that I need to do in my life. Like I have responsibilities in my life and I have to go and make sure I'm attending to them. And I don't want to escape from them. I think I'd feel better if I accomplished them. So anyway, however, when you return to the self, or when I return to myself, what that feels like to me is it feels like a refocusing. So it fixes that incorrect focus that occupies so much of my day by default. And I think it occupies most Americans' days, this lack of clarity and this going through the motions and this convenience of activity. Like you choose activity through convenience in your leisure time. Yeah. I don't know. That's just something I was thinking about when I finally started writing today when I was cooking. And yeah, that's funny. But anyway, so I'm checking the notes on that. Like the other thing that leads into is when you are focusing on that which is nearest you, like that which already exists. You're not getting caught up in potential futures, and you're not being overly optimistic or discouraged about the future. You're not living in any sort of fantasy worlds about reality. You're returning to yourself and that which is actually at hand, that which is actually here in your life, and the people who are here in your life, and you can attend to that. And through attending to those things which are real and actually connected to you in your life, you're able to cultivate. It's like you strengthen. I don't know what the best way to say something like this is. One way I think of it is like strengthening the good in yourself, or it's just like you cultivate all of those things that are around you and yourself into something greater and greater, and the people around you benefit from that sort of focus. And anyway, yeah. And another thing I thought about at that point is well, when we do think about that which is nearest us, or say family members, or people in our circle that we live with, that, not literally live with, but are a part of our lives, I think it can be easy to reduce that to sort of like tabs in cells in a spreadsheet, where it's like, oh yeah, well, I've got my mom, dad, brother, sister, blah 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 blah. And instead, I think this relates to media consumption, this next thing I'm going to say. Like, I think it is difficult for us to actually reflect on the real depth of our human experiences with other people, and to remember the richness of life. Instead, it all gets, and this is just what life is. I mean, we can't remember everything, and we don't remember most things, but thinking right here in the present, right now, like take a deep breath, like there's so much complexity and detail around you, and then there's so much to what's the word, recurse on in the mind with respect to that which is around you, like to reflect on and iterate on and make more and more complex, or sink more deeply into. Like, I think it's easy to sort of turn your life into checklists that you have to attend to, whereas in reality there's so much like depth and meaning and beauty in the world. And I think the reason that gets so pulled away from us is the intensity and quantity and speed of all of the media that we are inundated with constantly. So say you watch TV every day, or for an hour every day, that is an hour where you are sort of deliberately replacing it. And, I'm using this metaphorically, like it's not really a replacement. The memory of a human is more complicated than that. But it's as if you're saying, okay, for an hour, I'm going to weaken my ties to the life that I've lived and increase my ties to this production that was made by Hollywood or whatever it is. And is that really what we want to do with our time? And the real example, the real case that most people, I don't know, a better or more relevant example than watching TV for an hour a day is going on your phone for like 10 hours a day. Those stats apparently are, I don't know, I like poll my friends sometimes and will ask, and I've been surprised by some of the answers, where it's like, I mean, some people use it for work, but ultimately, it has the same effect. You are replacing your life with the work, and depending on the job, that may not be worth it. Anyway, so that's just sort of a preamble here. And yeah, okay, cool. I did write a note. Okay, so I want to bring this I mean, this is relevant. So this sense of camaraderie, I talk on the show sometimes about how we really need to help each other get through the following decades, because the culture that we have created, the society that we live within, will destroy us otherwise. It will really increasingly harm people if some of us don't make a concerted effort with our entire lives to, and there's a spectrum within that. You don't have to commit entirely, but I think you should to really addressing the severity of what is going on in the world and how that relates to what is going on in your individual life that only you are living. So I just really think this is there's a dual thing here. Like, I think it is like, I think what you are capable of is highly, highly important. Some people think the place of the individual plays no role in these sorts of events, and I'm not one of those people. I think the individual has a lot of potential, especially in the 21st century, now more than ever, with instantaneous communication, access to tons of information, access to, if you're in a first world country, like relatively high levels of wealth, you can access it. So and then the dual side of it is none of us are here alone. Like, we're doing this ultimately because we are here together, and it requires working together with this sort of thing in mind and holding each other to that standard and helping each other live up to that standard. So sorry, I feel a little I don't know, it was a weird day, so I guess maybe I feel a little drained because I talked to a bunch of strangers today, so I feel like I did my spiel already, but we'll get through it, because I think there's a couple things worth saying, and then this will probably be pretty quick. So I just want to think about how to bring people into that sort of camaraderie in our lives, and how to be someone who can work on these things with other people. And so I guess I'll just tell my story about the day. So I went to Brown University and was doing writing. I was writing on the quad, and there were tons of people because it's like the first spring day, and some people were playing music, and the bassist was really good. So they were just doing like jam band jazz stuff, but the bassist stuck out to me, and I was like, I just wanted to go. There was a drum set. I wanted to do like a duo with the bassist if he was open to free jazz or free improvisation. But I'm just weighing this in. It's just so unnatural to talk to strangers now because we live in our own little worlds. And so I was weighing whether or not to do that. And ultimately I did. And I went up and I talked to them. And there's just something, I think, talking to strangers, especially like our peers, people relatively our age, it can be weird for a variety of reasons. Like, I kind of feel like, I haven't thought a whole lot about this, but it is like there's some sort of animalistic tribalism to the way that people interact with strangers. And this is largely a sexed phenomenon. So I feel like whenever you're talking to guys relatively in the same age group as you, there's almost like a competition, or it's like a standoffish sort of like sizing each other up. And and it's like I don't even know. I mean, sometimes it's conscious, but I think it is a lot deeper than that. I think comes about because of some, you know, just some deep instinct that is in the human. And so you do just, I just kind of feel that when I'm interacting with strangers. So especially like I go up to this band and there's a drummer and I ask if I can play his drums, and I ask the band if I can only play with the bassist. So there's sort of an awkward, although it wasn't, ultimately we all played together and it was very nice. And, but you know, you just, I witnessed this whole evolution where it is awkward because it is, I don't know. It's just not normalized to be talking to people or to be playing music with strangers. It is within cliques or communities to do that, but it's certainly not like a public thing people really do together. And yeah, so ultimately we all played music and we had a great time, and it relieved, I found that it relieved a certain tension within me. So that tension built up as I was like, you know, I think it would be nice for all of us if I went over and we played, because some of them were switching instruments anyway. Different people would show up and leave. And so that builds up into a social thing, but it's also, or into a speaking thing, but then it builds up from a musician standpoint too, where you're like, well, what if I just go and play like shit and then I embarrass myself? And so there was this building of tensions where it's like sort of, okay, like I'm going to talk to these people. I'm like walking right up to them, and then it's like, okay, they said yes, so now I have to play the drums and I have to I have to try to do a good job. And it's free improvisation, so it's like totally improvised. There's no standard, and I'm playing with a literal total stranger and then several other strangers. So yeah, I don't know, it was an interesting social, not really an experiment, but experience. Anyway, so basically, sorry, I really do feel kind of fried today, but I would tie this into the ultimate subject matter of camaraderie, where it's like we overcame that discomfort, and then we played music together. We communicated with each other in a different way than linguistically, and then we exchanged names and info and went on our way. And there was specifically my interaction with the drummer too. It's like, obviously it's awkward to go ask someone to play their drums, and he's kind of like, you know, okay, just, you know, be careful, or like, you know, don't be too loud, don't slam on anything. Because yeah, I mean, I would be the same way. If someone asked to play my bass, I'd be like, I don't know, who are you? Like, it's a precious object. So I understand. But then after we played, we had a great conversation, and it was just nice to actually connect. So especially after a sort of a tense interaction, it turned into a connection. So that's something I've just been thinking about a lot, because so much of that takes place in our minds. And I think we're in a culture that leads us to not give each other the benefit of the doubt, not really have a charitable projection of someone else's intentions. It can be sort of, we can be sort of overly anticipatory or presumptuous about someone else's intentions. And that's something that I know I feel in myself, and that I try to curtail or morph. I guess I think of it more as morphing and, you know, transfiguring, because in your imagination, when you imagine someone's intent, or say you have an interaction with someone that really rubs you the wrong way, you can think about it, and you could imagine it to be worse than it really is. And I mean this actively, not passively. Like, I mean, you could be like, you could imagine more and more hateful versions of that person or something, and then you can take it really personally. This is just like as an imagination exercise. Or you could do the opposite, and you could be like, oh, that was really rude, but maybe they just have something going on right now, and you increasingly you increase the charitability of your interpretation until you're like, okay, that wouldn't have been weird at all if that's what's going on with them. So I'll just assume that maybe something like that is going on with them. And so through exercises like that, and it is an exercise, I do think it builds strength in the imagination to take these social interactions we have, especially ones that are intense, but it's easy to practice on ones that are minor. And you can move them with negativity and positivity in a way that ultimately changes the way that you understand interactions in general, because you start to break down the presumptions and you start to think more fluidly about the possibilities. And I think this is so difficult for people now because there has been a really severe breakdown in logic in language and the understanding of logic in language, where people, for example, let's talk about suggestion versus implication, where it's like someone may say something that suggests that they don't like you, I guess. And by suggests, I mean it provides a little evidence that supports that hypothesis. The idea of implication is someone could say something that implies they don't like you. That could be fuck you or something. It could be an insult. It's like that. Okay, that is stronger than suggestion. That's not just suggesting that they don't like me. Like, taken all together with the circumstance in which they said that, I'm very confident that this implies that they don't like me. And I think that line gets really blurred in our current society, especially when talking about political concepts or in comment sections, this or that. Everyone is taking suggestion to be a form of implication. So someone may say something that suggests that maybe they're a Trump supporter or something, and a dozen people will jump on them because they read it as implication. So there's this whole communication breakdown going on, and it's been going on for a long time. And yeah, I don't know. So I think we have to do those. We have to do some like imagination games. We have to do some study of logic with each other too, and we also have to, in our actual personal relationships, like people we talk about things that matter to us with, in those relationships, I think we have a responsibility to try to hone our sense of logic and what people mean when they are talking to us. For example, you could always be trying to return to the subject at hand, because it's so easy to get off topic. For example, this happened in my second interaction with strangers today, where I was talking to another couple guys who were just walking around on campus, and we got to talking, and we talked for a long time about the show basically, and about things that we talk about on the show. And it was a great conversation, and they were probing my beliefs basically, and I was doing a little bit of that to them, but mostly they were kind of trying to figure out what I thought about certain things. And this is a game we play, and well, that is good in and of itself. I think that is a good thing. And there was one moment that occurred in the conversation where it really could have gotten out of hand, where we just got a little too abstract and started representing each other's viewpoints uncharitably, or rather, I mean, it could have even been charitable, but it just wasn't precise, and it wasn't from a place of attempting to discover, perhaps. And we both did it just in this like quick span of a back and forth that we had. And it's, I mean, conversation is just fun, and it's fun to do stuff like that because it's like you can be joking and you're playing with like you say one thing in a provocative way so that they interpret it in a certain sense, and like that it's not even really representing what you believe based on their conception of what that means. In this case, I made a joke where I forget. He said he called me utopian or something, and I'm like, I said something like, I'm anti-utopian. I'm an authoritarian. Like I'm for an authoritarian theocracy, which is not, literally true, or rather, what most people take that to mean. They don't think it would be true. I think the Tao Te Ching is a great political book. I think if there was a Taoist sage in the nation, if he was literally a Taoist sage, I'd be fine with him being the dictator. Like that's fine. So in that very specific conception, I could say that, and I put it that way to him just as a joke because I knew that would never be interpreted charitably. But quickly we got back on topic, or we got back to trying to really understand what the other believed in good faith instead of in, joke faith. And so, yeah. Anyway, so this is just kind of well, yeah, and the same thing happened in that interaction too, because we were all strangers. I had met them. We recognized each other sort of because we had all been at the same talk on cybernetics that was given at Brown the prior semester. So, like, that's how we got to talking, but we don't know each other at all. So there was that standoffishness that I'm describing, and it's just that, like, I don't know, we just don't trust each other as fellow participants in the society, and there's just a weirdness to talking to strangers, especially once it gets onto a deep topic, but it can vary. Anyway, the broader point of the show is just that I think it is possible to hone within ourselves our ability to have charitable interpretations of other people's intentions who may be people that we want to work on understanding the world with, or like, being friends with in the world, living in the world with. And that's something that I try to do in my life. And it's I don't know, it's hard because so many people are so disinterested, and I was actually shocked by, like, there were tons of people on the Brown Quad, and it was very jovial, and I was like, this is like the darkest period in American history. And I mean, hopefully some students at Brown are like in the basement, like grinding on, some serious work that they'll do in the coming decades. But, mostly I just saw a lot of people playing games, and games are important in a certain context, but this is just such a serious time. So those are the kind of, I'm trying to find people who realize that this is a serious time. So I'm going to read the chat real quick and then call it a quick stream today, just because, I was talking I feel like we talked like almost like an hour. Yeah, someone says, I'm reluctant to enter communities because I sure have this happen to me. You can watch people enter PvP mode, player versus player mode, over their wild interpretation over a thing you said. It's real and it sucks. And it's like, yeah, people just have these wild interpretations, and they just believe that they're real. I wrote something here where I was just thinking about the breakdown of linguistic logic and what the consequences might be in the not so distant future for something like that, because it's been breaking down for decades, but who knows, maybe a whole century. And I don't know, I mean, it evolves. I say it breaks down though, because obviously it evolved in pre-literate and then mass literate societies, but yeah, I'm willing to make the moral judgment that it is breaking down in a dangerous way right now at the mass scale. So Yeah, it's basically I started thinking about if your parents. So say you're a small child and your parents are these type of people that I'm describing who really don't understand the difference between suggestion and implication, and that's just one example. And they take their interpretation to be that which is the cause of what you're saying, like they project it into you, and they are really rigid about these things and they're particular about them, and they don't understand that language has certain nuances. They have removed certain nuances from the language. If you are a child who grows up in a home and a community like that, I think it's really interesting to think about how your logic will develop and how your understanding of words will change. So you will develop from your parents the sense that because you believe that that is true, that is the way that language is used, that is how words convey what people have inside them. Those are the rules that you learned. And if you learn those rules, it cuts you off from going back and reading texts from before your time period. And obviously, anyone could learn this later, I assume. You could develop your logical skills later in life, but it's just such a tragedy that children are being raised in a way where that's how language is used. And they're also being given phones at a young age, which are, they're receiving language on the phones as well, but it's also flooding in all of these fake experiences and flooding out all of their real experiences. It's not looking good. So I'll read a little more of the chat real quick. Yeah, so I'll just read what Daniel said. I think a lot about how people who live in extreme social fringes can connect with the rest of the population in terms of community slash immediate sustained friendships, particularly in regards to homeless people with extreme mental difficulties. It happens, and when it does, it's beautiful that these people connect. But it feels like a giant chasm that we're not really collectively closing. I used to chat with a guy who lived under a bridge, and he had an incredible story. He disappeared one day, and it's like, I can't imagine living that kind of experience. Really helps to contextualize my own suffering, shrug my shoulders, and tell myself it could always be so much worse. Yeah, the final interaction with a stranger that I had today was I saw a homeless man with a walker, and I said, "Have a good day." And so, and he acknowledged me, and we were walking kind of near each other for a little while, and I was like, I was like racking my brain. I'm just like, what else do you say to someone? And then when I got home, I was like, oh, I should have asked him his name. And that's how that's how little like total social or a total stranger interaction I do, or at least it's not an everyday, you know, like I've made a lot of friends out of strangers, but they become friends. I don't do a whole lot of like total stranger interaction because once you meet them once, they're not strangers anymore. You're acquainted. So yeah, and that brings me around actually to a point that I did want to make, which is with respect to all of this, because with respect to all social interaction, I just think I think about almsgiving as a concept, and almsgiving historically has been giving material or money or food to people in need. And I think we live in such a socially hostile, weird, off-putting time that so many people in our world, actually maybe everybody in our society, could really benefit from a type of social giving that we're all capable of giving people, whether it is a smile or a how are you today, or you know any little thing like that, whether it's with a cashier or a homeless person or just a random person on the street, I think that goes a very long way. Because I don't know, like giving food and money is important, of course, but it those are visible needs. You can tell when someone's hungry, and people can tell when they're hungry as well. You can't get it out of your head if you're really hungry, but if you're really lonely, you might know it, but you might numb yourself to it. You can numb yourself to these things at all stages, but food, water, and air, we need those 100%. And if you go too long, it becomes very, very apparent to yourself. And however, with things like loneliness or social sadness, like that can be suppressed. You can find ways to tell yourself it's not happening, or it's not so serious, or you ultimately find ways to forget how lonely you are. And I think that is the case with tons of people, even people who have families or do interact with, like I'm thinking of middle-aged parents who do have children or something who still live with them. And it's like you interact, but because of our media situation and linguistic situation, even in those cases, in like a healthy family, you can be lonely and isolated because you're not reaching the full richness that is possible in socialization. We need to rediscover the full richness of what it means to interact with another human being and to be a human who's around other people. So that's just something I try to think about with almsgiving. It is similar to the fasting thing. It's like you can fast from food, but maybe you have to fast from certain thoughts or certain uses of the internet. It's like we're in a psychological era. Like there's a lot of weird stuff going on psychologically at a mass scale now more than ever. And it requires thinking about our duties to each other in a different way. And I think it can go such an unbelievably long way for someone to just be spoken to just be acknowledged, especially thinking about homeless people who can be, that's a deep and extreme type of loneliness, to be literally ignored by hundreds of people a day. If you're homeless in a city on the sidewalk, just ignored. And you may be calling out, you may be asking for change, and ignored. Think about how much it means to be ignored by 200 people, but then one person says hi and asks what your name is and asks if you want a bottle of water from the convenience store. Like really try to put yourself in those shoes, because it is hard. All right, well, I'm going to get on another note, I'm going to wrap up the show, and I'm going to get a new computer. Found one on Craigslist that seems kind of epic. It seems like an epic gaming PC. Because my Mac Mini is really incapable of a lot of stuff. Like, for example, I would like to, if I'm reading something, especially if I'm reading it off my computer, I'll often read off a book, but some stuff I've read off my computer, and there's no reason I can't put that on the screen, like over here, and have you read along with it, especially now that the camera quality is better, the computer's not working so much. I guess it's all irrelevant once I get an upgraded PC, but yeah, there's just other stuff I would like to do that I don't have the hardware capability for. Maybe have people call in, do like an interview episode or something, throw a video of them up there. I don't know. Once I have the hardware, there will be some more possibilities. So if you haven't, please like the video, subscribe, hit the bell for notifications. And I made an Instagram that I'm posting some stuff on. Feel free to follow it. It's American Junto. And yeah, I mentioned this on another stream, but I'm going to try to get a Patreon set up ASAP, because I have some ideas for it where I could send out some typewritten prose or prayers, not that I've written, but things that I find inspiring, or like verses from the Tao Te Ching, or I could send out books for a higher tier, or I also, some people have asked for audio only versions of the episodes, and Patreon would be an easy way to distribute that. So, yeah. All right. Well, yeah. Have a good day. And I'll be here not tomorrow, not on Wednesdays, but I will be here Thursday night if all goes according to plan. I do have to fix a car, and the timing is getting a little uncertain when I'm going to do that, but should be here on Thursday. Have a great night, everybody. Thanks for tuning in.